You know, nothing says you're a spiritual person like having some bits of rock that's probably been mined by wage slaves in the third world, because you know, that really shows you're just extra spiritual, where it's dug up by people who have practically nothing, who get paid very poorly, treated okay. It depends where you are, really. You know, it depends in which nation. And yeah, then it's either carved or isn't, or tumbled or isn't, and then sold at a marked up price to you. I mean, a marked up price might well be, hey, this is low grade crap which we can't sell for you know, jewellery, so we're going to tumble it, and you're going to buy a little tumble stone. It's costing you £1. It cost the original mine like a penny, instead of just simply throwing it away. And yeah, basically you've brought some fancy gravel. Good for you, you know, buy some fancy gravel if you so wish. And as people might know, I used to be something of a crystal collector. In fact, I gave a whole bunch of them away at one point to charity shops and to a spiritualist church I used to go to. That's when I still was a spiritualist. And yeah, I don't think it benefited me at any point in my life to any great notable degree. The idea of it, the notion, perhaps, what does that mean? Well, that means the idea of thinking the right kind of thing at the right kind of time. This one will help you just remain calm, especially around some difficult people. Okay, if it says that in the Crystal Bible, or in a book by a gal called Melody, or some other New Ager with their New Age book on crystals, then I suppose it must work, because why would they lie? They're selling a book. Why would they lie? They're selling a book. They're selling classes, they're selling workshops, they're part of an industry, a consumerist, spiritual, you know, movement. Basically, I mean, I call it New Age. Some people call it the spiritual movement. Some people call it the awakening spiritual movement. I've heard people using all sorts of different terms, in other words, and broadly overlaps. It's alternative spirituality. It's like non-organized spirituality. It's not like religion, which is organized spirituality, which sounds contradictory in some ways in the modern age. But in any case, it says it in a book. And if you read the books and you believe the ideas and you have a broad, you know, series of things you accept, perhaps you have a number of friends who are in the actual movement itself, perhaps you go to spiritualist churches and they believe a lot of that, although many of them don't. Perhaps you go to spiritual groups, meditation centres, classes, practices of some kind. Perhaps you go to online courses, videos on YouTube. You're kind of indoctrinated and you buy into the idea, and it's like, this green one relates to the heart, and it's going to help you to feel healthier and to be more vital, and it's going to help to balance out your emotions, and it might even help in terms of heart conditions, and someone who has a heart condition might well latch onto that, and it helps to keep them calm, the idea of it, and prevents them from basically pushing themselves too hard and having to go to the doctor to get their medication increased, or perhaps even far worse. So maybe there are some benefits, but it comes from inside your head. And a lot of people make it, it's really spiritual, and there's, you know, positive energy, and it's always positive energy, isn't it? You know, it's like, you know, you imbued it with positive energy, you blow away or burn away or wash away or bury it in a pot of sand or soil or in the back garden for a week, and it's like, oh, it's taken the energy away. You know, out in the sun or out in the light of the full moon or whatever the case may be. And it's like, well, has that really purged anything? Has that really purged anything at all? Was there anything there to begin with? How do you test that? You don't. People presume it. Things come to you and they're clean after every other person who's gone for that shop has already touched that crystal, perhaps. And, yeah, the people who actually mined the damn crystals, they had no part. What about, you know, millions of years of nothing? Just, you know, a geode underground. You know, what was that? I mean, was that programming good? Was that bad? Was the development of the crystal good or bad? Is an imperfection a good or bad thing? People argue about that too. Some people love imperfections because, hey, it's nature. Some people hate imperfections because, you know, that's something that reflects on you, but I suppose that isn't too many people. Some people like high grade stuff. Some people love low grade stuff. Some people just don't care. It's good either way. And in any case, does it actually change a thing? I mean, you like a particular colour. Colours have meaning in particular cases in certain parts of the world. In other parts of the world, colours might well differ and meaning might well differ. For some people, certain ideas of what green might mean might differ from other parts of the world, just as with red. Red in the West, hey, it's not so much of a good thing. In the East, it's a very good thing. And between, I suppose, it varies to some large degree. And with green, oh yes, the colour of Islam, and the colour of, the Holy Spirit, and the colour of this, and the colour of that, and so many other relating meanings. But what does it actually relate to? The chakra system that many crystals relate to was interpreted in, I believe it was late 19th century and early 20th century, and interpreted wrong and associated with colours which it does not have full association with in the East, and therefore is a Western interpretation based on some of the Eastern ideas to make it easier to incorporate, as opposed to having a series of mantras, a series of chants within certain practices relating to yoga and other ideas within India. So, oh yes, we're going to relate to the chakras. Your idea of the chakras, you mean? And your idea of which colours should be where and which things should mean what and how, and supposedly that's reasonable and you're going to get to the truth and that's the way it works. But it's simply a system, it's a psychological system of actually trying to get to some kind of place where you want to be. And even when I've had a few comment conversations, and I've seen it with videos he's done. There's a chap who does tarot called Nick Dutch. And I think he still has a YouTube channel. I don't know if he adds to it anymore. I haven't kept up with his content for many years. And he was on about, at one point, the psychological benefit of these ideas. So even if it's not necessarily true, the psychological benefit of those ideas could be beneficial to those people who are looking for something to latch onto in order to actually do some things in their life. And he said that, I think, in regard to tarot cards. But equally, I would argue, I can't remember if he said it in regard to this, but I would say it's true in regard to, all the New Age stuff. In regard to crystals, chakra meditation, healing and everything else. People are looking for something, they latch onto something. And that doesn't mean it's worthless, because they're using a psychological aspect to try and get to where they want to be if they actually have that ability. Many people don't. Or won't, because they don't have the same idea of what could be. But for them, it works. And if it works for them, then I suppose it's a good thing. And that's the reason why, in some ways, we should tolerate it. But it's also a load of bullshit. And maybe if people realise, hey, I can change how I think by thinking the right sort of things in the right sort of way and not having all the fantasy in the way between me and where I want to be, perhaps they'll actually do something worthwhile instead of simply latching onto things which may or may not be in any way valid. So, if you play around with fantasy, sure, you can gain some great things. I'm sure there's many people out there who've gained a great deal from operating within and with fantasy. But as far as the actual practical applications of said fantasy, I think it's highly problematic. And if you can actually gain real world benefits long term by actually realising where the fantasy begins and ends, then I think you can actually gain a lot more than simply saying, my crystal links to the angels, and that's why I'll never be hit by a buzz. Okay, why'd you bother looking both ways? Oh, well, my angels tell me to look both ways. Oh, right, how convenient. So if they're looking after you, why do you need to look both ways? I mean, that's a ridiculous example, but imagine, if you will, where people say a crystal has protective properties. How does it protect you if you're the one protecting yourself? It guides you subtly. Is that really protection, or is that just simply some kind of subconscious thing? And if that's a subconscious thing, then it almost certainly relates to the idea that's been implanted in your head that it's actually a protection stone. Oh yes, hematite, it's very protective. And you then think you're protected, and then you kind of, think about it more. It's kind of ticking in the back of your head. It's a little psychological trick where you're going to be more aware and more careful in your everyday life, and as a result, you're not going to you're not going to be hit by a bus or necessarily mugged, because you don't go down that dark street where there might be a mugger. You go down a lighter street, you look both ways when you cross the road, and you don't end up being affected by the things that are liable to hurt you, because you're being more sensible, more balanced, and that is a beneficial thing.